Now, I give the floor to Alpidio Bravo, Minister. Afternoon. A big hug, Mr. Sacha Llorenti, Secretary General of ALBA-TCP, Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Felix Plasencia. A big hug. We are also proud of being original from the central parts of the country. That city with an extraordinary cultural life and that holds the remains of Che Guevara. A big hug for you. Ministers of Culture and Tourism of Latin American and Caribbean nations. We are all friends. Thank you to the Secretary General of this for this meeting, given the times we live. The circumstances in which we are carrying out this meeting give us the opportunity to find new alternatives, working together and taking advantage of the strength of our countries, and to give an impulse to cooperation. So in the midst of the political circumstances, social circumstances, economic and health circumstances we are going through, we have the duty of safeguarding the cultural inheritance of our nations, to protect their traditions, to guarantee the conditions for the development of our nations, and to achieve, as Fidel said 60 years ago, that art and culture to be a real inheritance of the people. Facing the strategy of the empire, culture has a decisive role. To achieve our peace, emancipation, and development purposes, the notions of justice and prosperity that we defend cannot be built aside of the development of the spirit. Prosperity that is not subordinated to the virtue, as José Martí said, degrades the peoples. Without culture, that work will be incomplete. So beyond the obstacles we have, ALBA-TCP will continue to be space for integration and for regional unity for the peoples of our America. So we should preserve and we should persevere that our governments propose to the international panorama marked by the facing of COVID-19 pandemic. We can add the brutal sanctions of the empire against some of our countries, sanctions that, despite being well calculated, have not achieved to break the resistance, the unity, the will, and creativity of our peoples. Allow me to give you my thanks to the Cuban people against the blockade, as we saw it in the United Nations when once more the international community expressed its rejection to the injustice and evidenced its support to the sovereignty actions that Cuba has adopted for more than 60 years. As part of the same context, today we are victims and witnesses of a true media war directed to overcome the constitutional orders that we have built, fostered by the enemies of all the times that have financed the slander campaigns against media and social networks, destined to divide these societies and to say lies. For Cuba, the experience that humanity lives since the beginning of 2020 is an example of the need for unity and to find creative solutions. We have an urgency of implementing new policies focused to the development and the human happiness, and to foster peace and solidarity, and not directed to gaining money. In Cuba, writers, artists, and workers of the culture have been in the center of the transforming work of the revolution. The cultural work has been an essential element of our cultural policy. In communities, we have seen initiatives and actions that channel the participation and creativity of the people, and they reinforce social cohesion and the sense of peace of those who find answers to many of their expectations and spaces for their personal life. During all these years, the work in the communities has contributed to pay a historical debt with the humble. Culture is a component to the life standard of the people. So we will continue directing our efforts to that place. That just work is at the same time a very important contribution to the formation of the consciousness and the construction of the consensus and hegemony that our processes need to go on. In this moment, following the initiative of President Miguel Díaz-Canel, different structures of government have special support to 62 Havana communities, and we have seen the strength and authenticity of different ways of cultural expression that was born for years in those neighbors. So the management of culture will have more integration of the social actors that make it possible, and the creation of new scenarios of articulation that's to strengthen those links and the active participation of the people. The strategy we have designed to face this historical moment stimulates the active participation of the communities, the development of the creative economies, and to preserve and to promote the cultural and local inheritance. In our case, despite the pandemic forced us to close temporarily part of the institutions in which we fostered culture, and in the difficult economic situation deepened with the strengthening of the U.S. blockade, the support to the creators and the workers of culture remained as a priority of the state, expressed through the wage protection to more than 20,000 musicians and all the workers of the sector in the country since April 2020 to date. Participation and creativity have marked this moment in which artists and institutions have made even the impossible to save the Cuban culture. So some initiatives have gone to the space, to the virtual space, as concerts of musicians of different generations, even some of the most international events that we promote have used the social networks. 370 online concerts reaching more than 150 countries have been reproduced by the national radio and television, and we have fostered more than 170 video clips and documentaries and lessons and hundreds of spots with message to support the healthcare personnel. So during these months, we have donated books to communities, hospitals, and isolation centers, and we have made art galleries. So houses have served as scenarios to artistic presentations, and dozens of homemade videos produced in different parts of the countries show the magicians, the dancers, thousands of activities promoted by our education sector have reached the students in a gesture of solidarity. Workers of several countries transformed their working places and donated beds to hospitals and inputs of importance to this in this moment to face the pandemic also during this time. So we have strengthened the relation between the Ministries of Culture and Tourism to diversify the spaces and the options that we can offer to our visitors. The list of initiatives is huge, but the importance is to highlight that all this is an example of the spiritual strength and resistance capability of a culture that is very strong and that is projected with a huge energy facing the difficulties and the slaughter of those who do not accept the reality of a socialist, sovereign and independent Cuba. So for us, these are times for innovation and solidarity. That's why I reiterate our disposition to continue sharing the experience of Cuba in regards of cultural work, as we have done it for more than 50 years with the mission Culture Heart with the Venezuelan people. We have a difficult task, but a beautiful task and a stimulation task. So this is also an opportunity to share the transforming potential of the culture and to contribute to the implementation of the objectives of the sustainable development that we have complied with. Ministers, culture is the best understanding bridge between the peoples. Our meeting should highlight the urgency of strengthening those bridges and to work to achieve common goals. Let's face with optimism and determination this new opportunity to diversify with sustainability criteria the interchange and cultural collaboration of our alliance to new horizons. As never before, today we should work together. We should help us and to strengthen cooperation in favor of culture, equity, peace, solidarity, integration, and development. Together, we can do it. We'll be victorious. Thank you very much. Sure. Thank you very much to Cuba for